Okay, story time. So I work at a jewelry store, and today a man came in looking for a gift for his wife for their 10th year anniversary. He ended up picking out a piece that said, "My beautiful wife." And I said, "Anything else for you today?" And he said, "No, that's it for her, but I do want to make another purchase using a separate credit card. And could you possibly create a different account for me?" And I said, "Sure, what are you looking for?" And he said, "Do you have anything that says girlfriend?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Perfect, I'll take it. And do you have anything that says happy 1-year anniversary to go with it?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Perfect, I'll take it." So I boxed everything up all nice and I put them in their respected bags. He had me mark a K for Kristen on the bottom of his wife's bag and an L for Laura on the bottom of his girlfriend's bag. I put pretty bows on them. I handed it to him. I said, "They're gonna love it. Have a nice day." And he said, "Thank you." And shit, I just remembered that his wife's name is Laura and his girlfriend's name is Kristen. I must have mixed up the bags. Oops.
Say when they see me pouring some more, oh, think it's empty again. Better fill it up before I go. Cause I'm loving it, feeling it, touch me and being it. See what I see in it, I'm typical. Messing around with it, mix it up, go with it, flow with it, let it all go. Oh Lord, think you know what I'm like, but you don't fall, you lose control. Bittersweet.
I made my teacher cry. Story time. When I was in 2nd grade, I had this teacher and she was the devil, and we're gonna name her Miss Jackson. And the reason I call her a devil is because she would say really mean things to me to my face. She would be like, "Ty, stop talking like that, you sound like a little girl." Or, "Your favorite color can't be pink, you have to choose one of the boy colors." And since I was so young, I didn't understand how serious these things were, and I didn't know I can get her in trouble. And I would go home sad like every single day. Eventually my mom noticed and she asked me what was wrong. So I told her some of the things that Miss Jackson would say to me, and my mom was mad. And my mom was like, "The next time she says something to you, say something rude back, and if you get in trouble, I'll handle her from there." So I was like, okay, I'll do it. Now, Miss Jackson was a heavy lady, so I knew if I said something rude to her, it would be about her weight. Though we don't body shame around here. We don't do that, okay? So I'm in school eating lunch with my friends who happen to be girls, and Miss Jackson comes up to me and she's like, "Shouldn't you be eating with the boys?" So I looked at her and I was like, "Shouldn't you be eating a salad?" And the lunchroom started laughing, and then she started crying.
In high school, I had a friend who lived in this old, small apartment building. And on the first floor was this old guy named Dave who had apparently lived in the building forever. And no one really knew what Dave's deal was. The only time people saw him is when he walked outside to walk his tiny dog. But other than that, he never left his apartment. He had a nephew who delivered him groceries once a week. My friend just assumed that Dave was too old or had some sort of sickness that prevented him from leaving the house. One day, my friend was coming home from school and Dave's nephew was leaving the apartment building. And my friend is really sweet, so she was like, "Hey, I know Dave sometimes has troubles getting out of the house, so if you ever need me to go over there and bring him something, let me know. I'm always happy to help." And the nephew looked really shocked and terrified. He was like, "No, you should never go over to Dave's ever." And then he got really awkward and he was like, "Okay, gotta go, bye." And then a few weeks later, my friend was coming home from a Halloween party late at night. And when she got inside her apartment building, Dave's door on the first floor was wide open and it was pitch black inside his apartment. But then she heard something behind her.
Story time. So just when I thought dating couldn't get any worse, surprise, it did. I went on this date. It was like a FaceTime date the other night with this guy, and it was going okay at first. It was a little bit awkward, but it was fine. Pretty soon into the date, he asked me what my type was. And I said, well, I don't really have a type. Like, you know, all my exes are pretty different, which is true. And then I asked him what his type was. He looked me straight in the eyes and said to me, "Well, normally I go for really strong, motivated, and independent women, but they're all pretty heartless. So I'm trying something different." Excuse me, bitch?
My name is Sarah and I'm going to teach you how to speak like a dolphin. Ready? Step 1, laugh. We're going to be dolphins. Okay, step 2, try to scream and do not let it out. Perfect. Step 3. Make the sound from deep within. Put them together, but make it staccato. Bring it up an octave. Even more. Great. Now put your hand in a fist and bring it all together. What do we get? Now show your friends.
Story time about how my boyfriend was cheating on me for 3 months straight at his new job. So a little background information. At this point in our relationship, I did not have much trust for him because of his cheating in the past. Well, when he got this new job, I decided that I was going to start trusting him. I don't know why, stupidest thing I've ever done. So a month goes past, he's been working at this place for a while, and he comes home one night with a girl's phone number in his pocket. And I'm like, whose phone number is this? He's like, oh, one of the girls that I work with wants me to talk about her problems with her. So I threw the number away and I started to get really paranoid. But every time that I would get paranoid, he would be like, babe, I'm not doing anything, you know, like I really love you, I'm trying to change. And he said that literally every night. And his brother worked with him. Well, the one day he really pissed his brother off, so his brother was like, I'm telling her everything that you've been doing. So he calls me and says he's been fucking 2 other girls at work. Like for part 2. Part 2 about my cheating boyfriend. So after I got off the phone, he's trying to convince me that it's not true, saying that the only reason why his brother would say that is because he was mad at him, which I kind of believe because his brother did lie 24/7, or try to play jokes on everybody. So I ended up believing my boyfriend, and to put the icing on top of the cake, I believed him even more because his brother texted me saying that it wasn't true. So a few months go by and he quits that job, and at this time him and I were really on and off because I didn't like the way that I was being treated. While being broken up for a few days, I got the app Tinder. And I guess the day after I got my Tinder, his friend showed him the app and he got it too. And the first person that he saw whenever he logged onto the app was me. So he texted me saying, you're a whore and I'm so happy I cheated on you with that girl. And that really broke my heart, because every night he would come home telling me he loved me after he did whatever with those girls. And anytime I got paranoid about him cheating, he would comfort me. Story time about how I hooked up with a guy in my science teacher's closet. So my whole grade went on this field trip, and everybody was dressing super nice, wearing a dress. And I wore a dress that day, even though I was more of a leggings and t-shirt kind of gal. And I wore spandex under because I hated not being able to move around. Well, after our field trip, everybody's jumping around on the bus, you know, I don't care what I'm doing because I have shorts on under my dress. And after school that day, I get a text from one of the popular boys. And he goes, I'm really physically attracted to you. And I was like, oh, same, like, period. And he was like, wanna hook up tomorrow? And I was like, during school? He goes, yeah, I have a place where we can hook up. And I wasn't really experienced with boys. So I was like, fuck it, if I'm gonna experiment, it's gonna be with you. Because he was really hot. So the next day I meet him during lunch, and he takes me to this one spot, but we couldn't hook up there because it wasn't blocked off like it usually is. So we go to my science teacher's room, and right after we hook up, our science teacher walks in. Story time about how I was the side chick. So it was my freshman year, and I had just moved to a new school. And I lived next to this senior boy. You know, the one that thinks you're good enough to do stuff with, but not good enough to date? Yeah, that one. Well, we both were on the same bus, and I thought he was really cute, so I asked him for his Snapchat. And I got it. So we started talking a lot, and we would always talk about me sneaking over his house because my parents were super strict. So homecoming night, I saw him grinding with this girl, but I didn't exactly think anything of it because literally everybody was just being passed around. Well, I went home after, and at like 2 in the morning, I got a text from him saying to come over. So I went over there, we did the dirty, and then I started to go over there almost every other night. At 2 in the morning. And there was this one girl that I got really close with. And I told her all about the situation, but I didn't tell her till like 3 months after it was happening because he told me not to tell anybody, of course. And she goes, you know he has a girlfriend, right? So I felt really bad and confronted him, like for part 2. Part 2 of me being the side chick. So that night he had asked me to come over again. And I went over there, but it's not what you think it was for. I got over there and I was like, when were you gonna tell me you had a girlfriend? Literally, this comment made me want to throw up. He goes, what do you mean I thought you knew? So I was like, no, I actually didn't.
And he goes, so does that mean you don't want to come over anymore? He goes, I really liked you, and I was gonna break up with my girlfriend for you. Which I know this is so bad, but that made me happy because I had the biggest crush on him. But then I just left. And the girl that he was dating was a senior, and I asked my friend for her Snapchat so I could Snapchat her. So I did, and I told her everything that was going on, and somehow it got flipped around on me, her saying that I was obsessed with her boyfriend. And then she got the nudes that I sent her boyfriend, and sent them around the whole school. My new school. Moral of the story, if he says he's single, make sure he's actually single. Story time about my toxic ex-friend group. So my freshman year, I had moved to a new high school. So right away, I started being friends with this group of girls, and they were super nice. And I was also friends with this group of guys. Well, since I was friends with both groups, we all started hanging out all the time, but only whenever I was there. The boys just didn't want to hang out with the other girls. And after a few months, the girls started acting really strange. So anytime that I would hang out with the boys and not invite them, they would ignore me for a whole week. Meaning they wouldn't talk to me in school, they wouldn't answer my messages, or anything like that. Not a single one of them. And also, anytime that we hung out, they would be like, oh, invite the boys. And it was like they never wanted to hang out with me. So the one night, one of the boys was throwing a party. And I was going, and the girls asked if they could come, but they had drama with a lot of people, so the boys didn't want them coming, but I invited them anyways. Like for part 2. Part 2 to the toxic ex-friend group story time. So, I invited them to the party, they showed up, and they were being really rude and standoffish the whole entire night. And these girls literally hated it whenever I would hang out with the boys or talk to the boys. Come to find out that every single one of the girls had a crush on every single one of the guys that were in my friend group. Also, I'm a very friendly person and will talk to anybody, and they got pissed off whenever I was talking to anybody who wasn't them. So a little bit into the party, I start getting a lot of dirty looks from a lot of different girls that I've never even talked to. And this girl walks up to me and she's like, why have you been Snapchatting my boyfriend? And I'm like, girl, what are you talking about? She goes, a few of your friends told me that you like my boyfriend and that you've been Snapchatting him and trying to get with him. So then she calls the girls over from my friend group and goes, didn't she tell me this? And they're like, yeah, she tries to get with everybody's boyfriend. So after that, I got kicked out of both friend groups because they spread a bunch of lies and rumors about me. Toxic ex-boyfriend story time. So I was a junior in high school, and I had just gotten out of a 4-year relationship with this one guy. Well, I started to see him date around, so I thought I should do the same. I started dating this new guy who was known as the biggest player. Since I just got out of a long-term relationship, we decided to take things slow. We both went to different schools. So we both had separate proms. And of course we both asked each other. So his prom came around first, so we got a shore house with his friends. And before we left, he bought me 24 roses. This man has never bought me anything. And my mom was like, that's strange. I know exactly what he's trying to do with you. I now see that may have been a warning. But did I listen? No. After prom, we went to the shore house and he tried to make it happen. I said no. The next morning, we both left. It was a Saturday because I had dance and he had baseball practice. He went back to the shore house that night and I didn't hear from him all weekend, like for part 2. Part 2 because y'all are impatient and gotta go to sleep. So I didn't hear from him all weekend, but I left my blanket there and I texted him so he wouldn't forget it. And he was like, okay, yeah, I'll drop it off and we can hang out because I haven't seen you. And then he says that he apparently spilt beer all over it, so he had to wash it. And everything was good until my prom. So we went and he was acting extremely weird and super distant. So that's when I kind of knew that something was up. I didn't have a shore house for my prom, but he was like best friends with all the senior girls who went to my school. So of course they invited him and we went. And then I saw all over social media that there were pictures of him with his ex holding hands and hanging all over each other at the beach. So I had work that night and I just so happened to work with his best friend. And I told him about how he was being super distant and how I saw all those pictures all over social media. And he was like, yeah, we never spilt beer on your blanket that night. He was actually with his ex and they did it on the blanket. Moral of the story, don't date the guy who's named a player because it's probably for a reason.
I'm going to be telling you the scary story of the house I lived in elementary and middle school. It was a 3-bedroom house, 1 bedroom in the basement, and 2 bedrooms upstairs. Because I was the oldest, I got put in the bedroom in the basement. Right when we moved in, I already had creepy feelings about the house. I hated being downstairs by myself. One day I dropped a $20 bill behind my dresser. I decided to move my dresser all by myself, and behind the dresser was this door. It wasn't a normal door, it was really short and just squared. It was also glued off, so I couldn't get into it. Me and my neighbor, who were best friends, worked at it for days to get into it. We finally got it open, and inside was another room. It was almost like an underground attic. The walls were wooden, the ceiling was wooden, there was no carpet, but it smelled awful. My parents found out and they were super mad at me for opening the room. They of course put that dresser in front of that door for a reason because they knew I would explore it. But after that, things started to get weird. Stay tuned for part 2.
The Affair, a story time. So it was April 13th, 2011, the day after my 33rd birthday, when my then husband decided it would be a good idea to tell me he'd been having an affair for a year. I was devastated. So I decided to tell my mom and talk to my mom and confide in my mom about it. And so my mom got super defensive and she was angry. She was almost as angry as I was, maybe angrier. And she got so defensive that she would follow him around and kind of find out where he was. And she literally stalked him. And I thought, wow, mom's coming in clutch. But then I find out 7 months later the truth. She wasn't defensive of me. She wasn't being like a good mom. She was jealous. I found out in November of that same year that she had been having an affair with my now ex-husband for 5 years.